So, like Donald Trump, he has a Leo moon, and I want to say a Leo ascendant. So that he's
Right.
operating on this like benevolent monarch slash
Dude, that
possible
makes so much
tyrant.
sense. Is because right, you
Yeah,
usher in the new with the old,
right. And so
with
look,
the
like
contrasting.
Aquarius is the opposite side of it. So
Dude, that makes so
whereas
much sense.
Leo, yeah,
Wow,
and
that's
what's like really
amazing.
crazy is that the lunar nodes when he was elected had just there around that time from in like 2006 to until I mean 2016 until the lunar nodes take 18 months to change, and it changed November 6th of 2018 is when the lunar nodes changed into Cancer. So from
Right, and that's when Nancy
eight
Pelosi got the power back.
oh really? Okay, so
Right, right, right. Yeah, with the mid elections, the midterm
18,
elections,
yeah, 18 months
2018.
before 18 months before November 6th, 2018 is when for that whole time period. So all of 2017, most of 2017 into
18.
2000 November of 2018, beginning of November 2018, we were all up in the Leo Aquarius shit.
Yeah,
And it is like Leo can, if it is divinely inspired, if it's like listening to its like highest like calling, which is like monarch ruling by divine right, meaning that like it's like been imparted by God, that like they're whatever. And
uh-huh.
the thing that we learn by the time we get to the other end of the zodiac across from Leo in Aquarius is that we are all operating on that God or divinity, divine, whatever, inside a human form.
Yeah,
And that we have to like allow and create, like allow space for each individual to have their own nuanced experience as and basically just hold each other accountable for not violating any of the natural laws of the universe,
yeah.
not killing someone else, not raping someone else, not stealing from someone else. Like
Right.
it can all be navigated and
Through the karma
addressed.
of good of kindness. Yeah,
Yeah, and understanding that kindness, like basically our system, our reward system and our value system in society, because like we don't really have like one that we all really vibe on.
yeah.
um
But it all comes
is
back to it's meant to be that way. But anyway, yeah,
what it's not. And it's supposed, like everyone's value system should be allowed like space
yeah,
and to breathe and to
yeah,
develop, and to
yeah,
evolve even, and also to not like, anyway, Aquarius wants everyone to be free because it
yeah,
can't be free until everyone else is free, and that includes the chains that we put on ourselves and tie us
yeah,
back to old ways of being, past like previous levels of consciousness that
yeah,
we have clearly outgrown.
yeah,
And Aquarius is like, wait, I'm sorry, you're still operating on what? Get the
yeah.
fuck out of
Like we
here.
have to
Like,
reboot the
no.
system. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that is so perfect you said that, because that brings me to the whole wrap up of what all this means, right? Okay, so with this movie, Last Temptation of Christ, like, right, like Scorsese, he's a maverick master, whatever legend you want to word you want to use, because he was on all this stuff before right? He was ahead of the game before everybody. Like he knew to stake his freaking reputation and career on a movie that he knew people was going to attack, and they lit the theaters on fire and everything. And so he knew that that was a that needed to happen. It was a good risk to take, because that's like the whole meaning of our existence is you have to take that risk on what your heart believes, right? The um qualitative, right? I The words are so
Yeah.
similar, you have to think of,
Qualitative. Yeah,
yeah,
me too.
like
I
you have
know.
to go with the qualitative. um even if the quantitative is saying something else, because that's kind of like one of the whole meanings of existence is the universe, you know, learning about itself through the catalyst of our vessels, right? And so the next evolution in the age of Aquarius is going to be basically systems that are set up to control people to do whatever, and this system of slavery, right? We're gonna then evolve into a system of where there's belief systems that will be left open so that you don't have to question somebody, right? It's just a belief system that's left open, something like astrology, astronomy, right? These older ways of thinking that the ancient civilizations before our 12,000-year-old system came into place, right? Like they had it right back then because, right, they were evolved for a reason because they had been around longer than we've been around yet. Like we haven't evolved yet like they have. So in order for us to get into that evolution,
we just burned a bunch of libraries in between here and there, and then we had to like start from scratch, and then that actually opened us up to new levels of control by the people that were like, every new land that we went to, every new land that was conquered, and that the indigenous people and their ways, no one says, actually, these people actually like had a quality of life that was way better than ours. We just didn't accept it because one, it wasn't us. Yeah. And two, they were wearing loincloths. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so they're just savages. Let's kill them.
Listen, science still does it. There are like tons of findings every day that because it does not fit neatly into
their narrative,
the accepted narrative or the hypothesized origin of like humanity, civilization, existence is suppressed. It is systematically
suppressed. Everybody has to watch the Joe Rogan podcast where he has Graham Hancock debate the mainstream scientist. It's amazing. It is mind-blowingly amazing because the mainstream scientist looks like such an asshole by the end of it. It's amazing. So, I love it.
And that's why did I send you the episode with Brian Maruscu? I'm waiting for my friend.
Watch that too.
Hashtag Charm City Books. I'm getting it from my friend he and his wife own Charm City Books in Baltimore. So I made sure to support mom and pop and not get like Amazon or like Barnes Noble, whatever.
The way of life is right for a reason.
I was like, send me that Immortality Key book that Brian Maruscu dude did. And he was inspired by Graham Hancock, but while Graham Hancock takes a journalistic approach and he follows the use of psychedelics and stuff like that in like the
almost using the quantitative to discover the qualitative.
He's doing that. And yet the science community has such a stigma against drugs. They're like, well, of course you support the Kool-Aid, you drink the Kool-Aid. Right. So this guy, Brian Maruscu, who's never even like smoked weed in his life, goes back and takes a very scientific approach. He bases his investigation on science, but what led him back to his findings, what brought the breadcrumbs that were there was because he is a what do you call that, ancient language. He followed the linguistic origins of the meaning of these sacred texts and was like, oh, well, wait, like in Aramaic, it actually means this, but by the time it got translated to Greek, it meant that. So let me look here.
Right.
And because
every control system was discrediting the one before it. So it had to turn 13 and the Star of David and all that stuff, they had to redefine it to something evil. Like, it's crazy.
All that shit. Everything,
Lucifer, 666. It was all good. They made it
the most important thing that like anyone can do is consider your origins. Your origins as a person, the origin of every thought and belief the origins of literally the words that you use. Like I always tell, I'm like I'm a namesake person. I'm always looking at the etymology of words.
Yeah.
And then like re-looking at the etymology of words. Like you have to consider the source from which you're getting the etymology. You know what I'm saying? Like, what if the version, you know, like, what if you have like a bootlegged Webster dictionary app on your phone and it's actually been twisted up by, you know, some like North Korean like app developer, you know what I'm saying? And now you're getting like a super like censored version or whatever. It's like, consider the source. And the most important thing is consider every source of things that you like, that you absorb from the outside against the wealth of knowledge that you have internally, both on a cellular level and on a psychic level. You have so much knowledge. There are things that there's reasons why certain things, even if you've never had like a mentor or someone to show them to you on the earth, like the second you encounter them, you're like, why does this vibrate with me so much? Why does this resonate with me so much? It's because you have knowledge and wisdom and beliefs and stuff like that that are like way beyond your immediate nature, as in like your this lifetime, and your immediate nurture, meaning like the nurture and familial and roots environment that you were raised in. So it's really about accounting for all sides. And the major thing that's missing in our current system is actual accountability, because no one can hold the people that have the highest level of power, that are really ruling and dictating the rules and the opinions that we base our laws off of. There's no real actual system of accountability. So that's what the Age of Aquarius is also here to instill, is that people getting hip to how easy it is to like devolve into nebulous or like nothingness or confusion or martyrdom, when proper acknowledgement of how important accountability is to human existence. That like basically there's like enough space for everyone and every belief and everything. As long as we have a way of holding any glitches in the system that are against natural law of being held accountable. But when accountability is missing from the top down, you know what I'm saying? Then like you're fucked. You're actually fucked.
The reason why they made their story so black and white, good versus evil, because then you can't question them. And that's what they don't want. They don't want the questioning. So then what's so crazy is then I realized while I was thinking about that I'm wearing a shirt that's black and white and you're wearing a shirt that's gray, and you're like
gray and black. I'm gray and black.
And you have,
I tend towards the darkness for white, sure, but my face is really pale. My face is very pale. Have
white headphones, but anyway, no, but it's just funny because that's kind of symbolic towards like my shirt's white and black, and I'm like, I am what do you call it, optically a straight white male. Even though I'm gay, but like some people,
but we can't tell that you're gay from where you're walking down the street.
People don't notice I'm even gay by my voice unless their gaydar is like really sharp,
really high.
They can tell by when I talk. But anyway, and then you are like traditionally like an oppressed demographic, a woman, and so then you're wearing the gray shirt, and we're talking about this like accountability, nuance, black and white nuance, which is more gray. That would be you know, the questioning, more accountability, making things more, you know, if they have to be chaotic to evolve in the questioning and the accountability, then it has to get that way, which is why I think the next decade is going to be very rocky to the Age of Aquarius, because we have a lot of growing to do even before the Age of Aquarius starts, right? And that's just the beginning of the age. It's still going to be a rocky road until we get to like the middle perfection, whatever that is, of like our utopia or whatever. But then it's gonna be a whole nother question of like, then what are the new problems of the world, you know? Like, I don't know, but
well, like the whole Jesus story set off the beginning of the age of Pisces,
Yeah.
which was to
Why
teach
he fed
us,
everybody fish.
which is to, yeah, which is why, and why he was able to turn, 2 loaves of bread and 3 fish into enough to serve however, 200 or 500
Whatever.
people. I
Yeah.
don't know how many, and I also don't know if it like changes between the King James Bible and whoever.
Yeah.
It also doesn't matter. Long story short is, if you're going to believe in any of these things, please read the text that came before. Again, they were teaching to the test so hard for in my catechism that it wasn't until I dated the first guy that I dated when I moved to New York, who was a modern Orthodox Sephardic Jew, that I even had any like working knowledge of the Old Testament. And I was like, I feel like I should have gotten this before I was allowed to get confirmed into the Catholic faith, but yet it wasn't. Like, that's weird.
Yeah,
so
that reminds me of something I should plug, like to maybe wrap up everything. So basically,
Jewish men, highly recommend.
Yeah.
Oh no! Oh, that wasn't what you were gonna plug. Okay, my bad. My bad.
No, that's good too. But no, just like our next evolution, right, is going to be more nuanced, and you're going to be able to question things, and you're not going to be met with fire and brimstone if you question things, right, in our new age. But anyway, also that like my sister was discovering all these like new ways of thinking and the true history of the world and everything through the Forbidden Knowledge website. Have you heard of Forbidden Knowledge? And
No.
yeah, so he's kind of into all this kind of stuff too, like the true history and what it all means, and like the ancient religions. And he, like he did something genius that like I'll never forget, where my sister was saying how like this guy was trying to get him to follow Christianity, right? Like convert to whatever Christianity it was. And he's like, well, I'll convert right now if you can tell me this verse in Deuteronomy chapter 2 verse 4 or whatever. And if you tell me what that is and what it means, I'll join right now. And the guy's like, oh, well, of course I don't know that. Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, you're staking your whole existence and belief system on this Bible, and you don't even know what that verse is. Well, then I can't trust your word into why I should join this, because it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
You are basing your whole existence on this thing that you don't even know about. And so that's the thing, is people are lazy and they just want to go with things and not question it because it's easier. Ultimately, like, we are lazy people, and
right. Is it Nietzsche? I don't know if it's Nietzsche or not, but who said that that religion is the opium of the people?
Yeah.
Because it anesthetizes and it clouds, and then you're just like, okay, well, whatever that was that made me feel whole or nothing or whatever.
Right,
I'll take more of that. I'll take more of that as opposed to the dredging through the personal individual experience and the things that don't add up.
The
hard work of like quantifying and qualifying our experience versus the experience that we're told that we should be having versus like what we know to be universal experiences. But
if you indoctrinate yourself into a dogma that thinks it has all the answers, then you're going to stop searching for answers. You think you have them all. And that's not good, because obviously they don't have all the answers, because they can't answer a lot of questions.
There's a ton of questions, and the best, like the real thinking, the real way that like we evolve is that the best answers lead to more questions. And the best question, you know what I'm saying?
You don't even realize to ask.
And they just like knew, like the answer that you get to a question to just like blow open a whole nother part of, perspective that you didn't have before you asked the question and before you got the answer. And that should be a good thing. It's not that people need resolve. It's people need more breadcrumbs leading them to the truth that they are slowly revealing to themselves through their process of experience, of individual experience.
And I think that's an amazing point to end on. Like that's, I
Oh,
think
I wanted to know about how you felt about Jesus and Mary Magdalene in this particular iteration
oh,
of the
okay.
whatever, because
No,
I know
yeah,
that
we
we
could
talked.
get more into, yeah. I mean, I thought it was just interesting, yeah, how they just portrayed things more truthfully. And but I don't know, what do you think? You probably have more better
Well, I
thoughts
thought there
on
was
it.
a lot more truth to it on a human perspective. And
Yeah.
yet at the same time, it was kind of eclipsed by the extraness of the performance, which I would love to know if that was like a directorial thing or if like that was how it was
Or
interpreted by the
a
actors.
tribute to biblical epics, because Scorsese, that was his first dream, was his first like dreams as a kid was to direct a biblical epic. So he was
Mm.
probably, maybe I'm just giving him a pass, but maybe he was making a tribute to all the biblical epics that he loved as a kid, which was a time where acting was over the top and dramatic.
Yeah,
So
very much
maybe I'm
so.
just reading into it because I'm, worshiping him, which is right,
No,
not
I
a
mean,
good thing. But anyway,
it did very much have like a Lawrence of Arabia level of like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? Like in
of
terms of
precious
like,
the material.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And I mean both, I mean, don't I love Peter O'Toole, I love Omar Sharif, rest in peace, both of you guys.
yeah.
I'm very upset that
David Lean. Yep.
I'm like literally obsessed with Omar Sharif. Like I can't even tell you. Like I literally thought that I thought I would just be like, I don't know. I just feel like he's like part of my people. He's my people.
Yeah.
And then also an I think it was an astrology book, but I also may have seen it in an acting book that I had in college. That was like Peter O'Toole was like, people ask like if you'll spend your last moments on stage, and he said a hotel and a couple of depraved women will like do just fine or something like that. And I was like, yes for you. Like he's
That's
like, no, I mean
funny.
like I like acting, but like not as much as I like just get my rocks off. Like that's the way I'd really prefer to
Yeah.
go. So like
Which explains the
anyway.
whole Me Too movement. In terms of
Well,
like, you never would have thought behind the scenes that all these people that we worship were doing these nasty things to people. But
Well,
anyway,
that's because of the spin on it.
yeah.
And like the whole point is everyone wants to be doing the nasty things that
The
they want to be
Caligula
doing.
scene.
And that it's the accountability of being like, yes, I'm taking ownership over like this is what I want and this
Yeah.
is how I'm gonna get it.
We're
And
making
I'm
them
not gonna impose
accountable.
and yeah, and making
Yeah.
and finding people of like mind that are happy to participate as opposed to forcing one's like will and fantasy and control and like grossness onto someone else. Like one is like a full transparency and you get to choose, and the other one is like literally having your choice taken from you, which makes you feel like less of a person and makes you feel awful and want to die.
Yeah, it goes back to the right, like how it makes sense that a Leo would bring us into the age of Aquarius, because right, Trump made
He's a Gemini. He's a Gemini with a Leo moon. And
okay,
so
but
he's
anyway, his
operating as a
energy,
voice, as a chatterbox talking head, but like where it's rooted in like on a cycle on a emotional level
yeah,
is I'm the person. It will all revolve around me and I will bring
right,
it to the whatever.
right, and so it makes sense that that energy has to then counteract with the energy, because right, that's why he made Me Too. That the irony of like Hillary wouldn't have made Me Too possible. It takes a reaction, because we're in a reactionary culture where it
Mm-hmm.
takes a reaction to something in order to evolve, instead of somebody telling us to evolve. Right.
And I also personally have my own, and this is like not even like politically, it's just about like the one of the issues of like the like let's say the pantsuit nation, and that of which that like like that Hillary is like the front and center of, is that you have a couple generations of females that learned to assert and learned a definition of power that negated feminine consciousness,
I call
feminine
it historical
knowledge.
Stockholm syndrome. That's what I call it.
Interesting.
It's
Interesting.
historical Stockholm syndrome. It's why one of the people who voted against Joe Biden's electoral results was a black
Mm-hmm.
guy. Like, that doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. And
Well,
it's
also,
so
I just so
complicated.
I'm like so I'm just like so anti politics,
I
and
know.
yet
I
I'm
know.
not.
It's crazy.
I'm pro structure, societal structure and law, and
Yeah.
informed by the needs and the whatever of individual people, which is ultimately community, which our modern Western society does not really account for or put front and center, or even have any, like, I didn't know what the fuck community was until like well into my theater training, when you're like basically living as like tribal people, because like everything else is, you don't even, like, you're living on a different time schedule, you're telling stories and you're writing your own stories, and you're becoming a part of like the fabric of like what really evolved humanity, even though you might feel like you're losing like your bearing on reality on the outside, because you're like put forth to like tell so many stories and learn the structure of stories, and you become an instrument and all this kind of stuff that like
That's
I
what this is about. Theater of War. The
oh my
Meryl
god.
Streep. It's a documentary about Meryl Streep doing Mother Courage for Tony Kirshner. It's
Oh
amazing.
shit.
It's
And
amazing.
Kevin Kline's in it too.
Yeah, it's
I
amazing.
need that. Can we watch
Yeah,
that? I need to
yeah, we
watch
should
that
watch that too.
ASAP.
And like Age of Innocence, and just like do a
Do
podcast.
the damn thing. I love how you let you're like, I get to like have my like cinema freak flag fly when I'm
Oh
with
my
you.
god, yeah. I'm like, as you can see, yeah.
I know.
So
It says movies and records all day, all
yeah.
day.
So I don't know. I think that's a good place to end it, because we kind of did go over, but I think it was worth it. So that was amazing. Thank you so much, Elise. You're like one of the greatest people I've ever met.
You too. Thank you so much, Rhett. And thank
um,
you. And thank you for picking me up out of obscurity. I know that we met at an open mic, but you put me on your show, which had like Mark Norman on it, and then like 100 years ago.
oh, that's
And
right. Yeah.
in like I was like in like 2016 or something like that. But whatever it was a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So I'm
Thank
glad
you
that
for
we've continued.
recommending me to get acid from this, from the person I found.
everyone
Yeah.
everyone eat acid. Everyone eat acid. Everyone eat mushrooms. Do it in a nice, friendly, controlled space, and just like see what you find.
Yeah. You'll question
Ask your doctor for it.
you will
Maybe if
question
enough
your
people,
authority in a good way.
yeah, maybe if more people go to their primary care physician and they're just like, I'm pretty sure that what I need is acid, or I'm pretty sure what I need is like a handful of mushrooms.
We'll shoot right into
That
Aquarius.
eventually enough people that will be able to, that will be the tipping point of like, you know
Yeah.
what, fuck over the counter pharmaceuticals, which are like rotting your liver and your kidneys and doing nothing for your brain, and instead it's like eat some of like some nature made deliciousness and like
Which
have
is
your
why
mind blown.
things like marijuana are becoming legal in this new age. It makes complete sense.
I don't know if it's real or not. I would love if one of your listeners could like come back and comment on whether or not this is true. But I saw this video. It was fed to me by my Instagram algorithm that I then sent to my mom. And this turned a very conservative thinker into, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And it was about the industrial age and the robber barons, specifically the Rockefellers, basically being the bank and the the media spin, or the people, or the voice behind the propaganda behind turning what had been a minimum of like 5,000 years of documented medicine that was all herbal medicine, and making it so that petroleum-based pharmaceuticals and over-the-counter drugs became the forefront of medicine, and everything else got deemed alternative.
Which
and
is what they did with everything, every way of thinking.
So then 20 years later, after you've had 2 decades of people doing this, then you had like a rise in like cancers and all these things. And then literally the American Cancer Foundation, or the American Cancer Research, whatever, was started with like several $1 million grant from the Rockefeller thing. So instead of taking public accountability and being like, actually, propylene glycol is not only synthetic, it's a hormone disruptor, and there's the reason you have Alzheimer's and X, Y, and Z and all this shit. Instead of taking accountability for it, they just put a large financial donation, a large monetary whatever, down the throats of everyone.
Right. And what's so amazing about that is then people think, oh, there's such amazingly kind people giving this money to this thing, when no, the Rockefellers just saw it as like their capital and advertisement investment for their new product.
So again, this is for me, this is an Instagram video, but to me it checked out, and I just sent it to my mom.
It makes sense.
I have it makes sense, and also it just makes you question everything. You have to question. Yeah, I mean, and I have to thank you, Mr. Peliquin, my 10th grade IB government teacher, and my the hardest class that I ever took in like my secondary school education was his modern world history class.
Yeah.
And dude, it was so eye-opening, and I'm so glad that like from the very first day, what he said was consider your source, because historiography is not just going to be on the exam. It's like the most important thing you can learn in life is knowing that where the history is coming from is a science and a study in and of itself.
Right, because if you don't want to memorize all the answers, just at least know where to go to get them.
Well, that brings me to my other teacher, who was also probably the hardest teacher that I had, Dr. DeFazio, who was my English teacher, who did not want me to pass it into he just thought I had a problem with my work ethic, which he was not wrong. But he had this whole, I will never forget the day that he goes, the smartest person in the room is not the person without the answers, it's the person who knows where to go to get them. Yeah. Because a brain can only have so much information where it's like actively recallable. Yeah. So instead, it's really not the person who has all the answers, it's the person who knows how to most efficiently and quickly go to get the most correct, accurate answer in a second. They know the source. Yeah. And I was like, fuck yeah, man.
So you don't need to know how to do math in your head. You just need to know how to work the calculator. Basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Or know the function, and then, or more importantly, know that this is information that I need right now on my path. But in order for me to gain that knowledge, I'd have to deviate from my path a solid 8 years and acquire that information and then come back. When you could really just like make a short list of people that whose life work is that knowledge and like try those first.
Yeah. Which also reminds me of like the best thing we should end on is, even though we are discovering new information that we are considering that is more of the true history, the truth of our existence or whatever, we should still even question that, right? Like, we shouldn't just think that now we have all the answers. We should always think in terms of, we never have all the answers. We should keep evolving and growing no matter what, no matter how concrete the old, stone of information you're sourcing your information on is. You should still even question that and question everything no matter what, because it only will then help you evolve. And you should never stop questioning things, even if you believe they're right and correct. You always have to keep going. So
yeah, and always make it relative to what you feel inside. Remember that your EQ, your emotional quotient, is just as important as your IQ, right? Your intelligence quotient,
Yeah, and just because Oh, sorry, go.
It's just that we've been indoctrinated. We've been institutionalized, right? Our public school is institutionalized. This knowledge and way of thinking is a very one size fits all situation. When we know, I know, as both a citizen of the human race and as a spiritual practitioner and just a lover of history and science and storytelling, is that our individual experience is what informs us and society and the earth. And so to deny any aspect of that just to try to fit yourself into the one size fits all paradigm, which is a fallacy. It's a construct. It's not actual. It's just profitable. So the more you allow yourself to move beyond one size fits all, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, religiously, in every single way, the more informed you become and the more informed your society becomes, and the more reflective and more allowing and nuanced everyone's experience gets to be, with like minimal trauma.
And just because you're questioning something doesn't mean you're necessarily negating that it's true. You just want to build on the information of what's there. Like, it might just be the tip of the iceberg.
Which is the perfect place to end your thing, because this is what got us on this whole situation. I don't know, like 3 months ago is when I told you that one of the most important things pieces of information that I received in my acting training, in my every training from she's a teacher, she's a guru. We call her Dr. T. She started the Conciliation Project. Everyone can check out the conciliationproject.org. Is when she said, we were raised and educated in the either or paradigm, right? It's either this is the truth or that's the truth. It's either either or. And yet we are in a moment of human consciousness, of evolving human consciousness, that we've entered the both and paradigm. So we have to allow and account for the fact that something is both and, as opposed to being either or. And there will be a moment of shock in order to make that space, or to understand that space is available to you, both consciously and physically and spiritually and psychologically. When you first hear that, you're like, wow, that sounds like something I can't do. That seems like something that is not possible. And the more you live in it, you're like, oh, that's true. And that's true. Why was I just thinking that the world is black and white when I've been knowing and experiencing it in these different shades of gray and color and all this kind of stuff all over the place? Why would I like go back to something that I through experience know isn't true, to try to rationalize it into black and white?
Because just because you only see the tip of the iceberg doesn't mean once you see the rest of the iceberg, then it negates the tip. Like, no, that doesn't make sense. It's both and. So, like, for example, we're not denying that the Bible's like true. Like, it's half true probably and half manipulated. So it's
a compilation of different people's accounts, and how many of those accounts were suppressed? How many of those first person accounts were
manipulated, reinterpreted, all that stuff? It doesn't mean it's all lies. It just means it's been manipulated and it is somewhat truthful. So, for example, like, people should use things like that to not completely alienate, for example, Christians, who are then going to hear what you have to say and then just completely ignore what you want to say. If then you lead with, well, no, I'm not denying the Bible's true or false or whatever. I'm not denying that it's true. It's just, it's been massaged into a control system. But anyway,
it's been propagandized. It's gone from stories of both firsthand accounts, and then people's like what they've expounded.
From both and to either or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're and Aquarius is coming all the way back to not just the
Nuance.
Aquarius comes back to not just either or, it goes either or and then some. I
Yeah,
call
which is the
Aquarius
nuance that we're
I
talking about.
call I call Aquarius beyond binary because
Yeah,
not only is it known for being kind of like genderless, like whatever, it's like beyond the gender paradigm.
because we're
That's
all a
also
mix of
reflect
masculine and feminine. Yeah.
it's it's also beyond just zeros and ones. Like
Yeah.
Aquarius is accounting for integers and like ingredients that previously, because we were adhering to old systems, we're not able to recognize or use. And Aquarius is like, nope, we're doing it all right now. Like I'm going to change the whole game. I'm going to change it, not by asking your permission. I'm
Yeah.
going to change it because you're going to come in speaking zeros and ones, and I'm going to have a bunch of characters on a scale that you've never even seen before.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, like we're not just accounting for the XY axis anymore. Like we are literally, we're like full blown ninth dimension. Bye.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, I think that's a really good place to end on. So thank you. Now we're saying goodbye for the second time. So thank you so much, Elise, for this. This is amazing. And thanks everybody for listening. See you next time.
Elise, I forgot to tell you the rest of my Scorsese story because I was so frozen in fear that I slipped him a piece of paper of what I wanted to tell him because I thought I'd be so frozen in fear, and I was right. I couldn't speak when I was standing in front of him, but I knew that I had to write down what I wanted to say. So then I slipped him a piece of paper of what I wanted, and then what was on the paper is like beyond Dorksville. So call me. I'll also tell you the story, the further details of the Michel Gondry story in terms of my story of Michel Gondry is kind of the bonus features of one of the documentary he did on his life. He tells the story of, I think, what is meeting me in the coffee shop when I freaked out, on him and asked for his autograph. He tells that story of me in the bonus features of his DVD for fucking the documentary on his life. It's so crazy. It was so insane. But yeah, call me. I'll tell you more of the story. Um, I go off on these tangents about shit and I can't finish stuff. So, love you. Have a good night. But tell me the name of that neighborhood in Baltimore you were talking about.